So this is one negative of a double screen board. I love double screens. They've got their place. They've got a lot of neat things you can do with them. But I was running out of space in this yard when I was splitting it earlier in the season because I was late on it and I had some swarm cells. Well, this hive had swarm cells and I didn't have any more spots. I was already putting bees on the ground. So I split it with a double screen. I had swarm cells in the top, I had cells in the bottom. Didn't look for the queen. Well, I think the bottom is queen right. They've drawn out most of an entire box of foundation. What I did is I split this like 4 different ways. I left a box, fully drawn box with a bunch of bees, assumed there was a cell in the bottom, put a box of foundation on top, left a box, same deal here. This was 10 frames drawn with cells in it, honey and brood and everything. 10 frames drawn, cells, brood, honey, everything. This was foundation. This was foundation. Well, now this is almost drawn. This is completely drawn. So the original queen's probably in this box here. That one's probably returned a swarm cell queen. Both of them need supers. And I don't have time to move this hive and reorient it to another location. So I just put supers on. I put a queen excluder, a bait frame, and a super foundation here. Queen excluder, bait frame, and super foundation here. Now when I come to work this spot, it's just a mess. I've got to make a trip out here and take this hive off and get it moved to another yard to reorient. But they're making honey and I don't want to stop them. I'm just burning through hives today. Haven't really had time to film. Got all these little splits made with swarm cells. I popped the lids on them, made sure there were bees in them. Sometimes they'll abscond and leave the brood and you've just got an empty box sitting there. So when that happens, I use those as honey supers. These are all living. I don't know if they've got queens or not. Get to this one. This is a double. It's either a hive that we split down and put a box of foundation on, or it was a big split that I made, a full box split. And they've drawn this entire box. I've seen 3 or 4 like this today. So they're obviously queen right. They wouldn't do that unless they had a queen. And they've been on a flow. So pulled one frame up, shook the bees off, put an excluder on them. They're gonna be run as a double and put a box of foundation on them. That frame they're working on will get them up in there and they might draw 2 out. We'll see. Black locust is just about done now. There's a locust tree right over here that's not even in bloom anymore. Poplar, this is probably gonna be the last good week for poplar. I see some poplar trees right over there. And you can actually see the blooms on them. If you look close, they look like speckles, little orange specks. So this will probably be the last good week for poplar. And then privet is gonna bloom. We'll have some other stuff, sparkleberry, snowberry, all that, all the little understory things, but we don't make much from that. We can make a little bit from privet and then persimmon some years. So we've got another week or 2 of pretty decent flow, maybe 3. 3's probably pushing it. A couple weeks. They'll draw out some frames in there anyway. It's worth throwing a box on them. This is not what you want to do when you make a split. There's a tick. I need to get him dead. So somebody forgot to put more frames in. I don't know if that was me or Jody. We split this yard together, but I think I'm gonna blame him because he's not here. That's impressive. That's not what you want to do when you make a split. First time I've ever done that. That's impressive. That's what you call a beekeeping snack. That's not tulip poplar, and it's not black locust. I bet that's black willow. That's good. The last yard I was in had done okay. The yard before that had done okay. This one, almost all the boxes I'm opening look like that or worse. This hive was just plugged. I'm a little bit late getting the super on them. I was a little late getting the super on another one or two down here too. So yeah, this yard's doing really good. Good honey production yard. This year anyway. Last couple of years it's been off. The year before that it was great. So who knows? So for me, the biggest difference between being a hobbyist, a sideliner, and then trying to do beekeeping full time is mindset. And this is something I'm still learning. This is a nuke that we made with a swarm cell. They're drawing wax, so they're probably queen right. They think they are anyway. I'm not going to check them. I opened them up and I immediately saw they've got 3 or 4 frames that they're not drawing, and I thought, oh, they don't need anything. And then I switched into full-time beekeeper mode and thought, will they need anything in the next 2 to 3 weeks? Because I could get behind and it could be 2 or 3 weeks before I get back out here. Yeah, they probably will. So we'll just play it safe and do a little future proofing. It doesn't take much more time to do this than it does to not do this. I open the lid. I may as well do something to them. All right. Now they really don't need me for 3 weeks. It's April 29th. This is the first day that I've heard bees on my American holly. They are just starting to open up. And privet is also just starting to open. So privet's beginning to open. I've just noticed that in the last day or two. Most of the privet is still a little ways away. Then there's a persimmon here. That will kind of be the end of our spring flow. That's still a couple weeks away, I bet. So this is, I think, what I'm going to call a honeymaker nuke. This was a double nuke that I made on April the 1st. Made it with 4 brood frames in the top, 4 in the bottom, 1 food frame in the top, 1 in the bottom. So 10 frames total, drawn, 8 frames of brood, 2 frames of food, and then 10 foundations. That was on April 1st, dropped a cell in. It is now May 1st. This top box has probably got 25 to maybe 30 pounds of honey in it. There's some brood in there. The bottom is completely drawn out. We've had a pretty good flow this year. Oh, that's a heavy box. So bottom's drawn out. And this hive is about to explode because that queen's been laying for 3 weeks now, 2.5 to 3 weeks. And within the next week to week and a half, her capped brood will begin to emerge. And she's probably got some capped brood in there that's already emerging because that hive looks pretty big. But yeah, this is a honeymaker nuke. You make a big nuke in the spring and that's your best chance to get some honey in year 1 with a nucleus colony. So to give this nuke some room to grow and hopefully make some honey on the tail end of our main flow and definitely make some honey in our June flow, taking 2 frames out of the top. Those frames have got some capped brood. I shook the bees off. So I know the queen's not on those 2 frames. I'll add these 2 frames, 2 foundations back. Closing that up. Put a queen excluder on top. And I'll put this box on top of that. These 2 drawn frames with some brood will make sure that the bees move up in through the excluder and into this box. That brood will emerge and they will backfill that space with honey. And we should get a super of honey off of this hive this year. So managing a nuke like this is really pretty easy. It's just a big, strong queen, big nucleus colony. They're not inclined to swarm unless they get honey bound, and they don't have enough space to store honey, so you need to make sure you give them plenty of room. But they're really good at drawing out foundations because it's a really young queen. She doesn't want to swarm. They'll draw out foundations and store honey really well, get that nest established. That's a really good colony. First time I've ever had a queen faint on me. She just passed out. Seems to be fine now. So I don't know why queens faint. I've heard of that. I've never had it happen. I knew it could happen. In fact, I had a friend, Craig Midget. He texted me a couple weeks ago and said he'd had his first one faint and he thought he'd killed her. This queen, I grabbed her by the wings. You know, she was running from me. I was kind of guiding her with my fingers away from the edge of the frame, and finally grabbed her by the wings and she just curled up. And then 3 or 4 seconds later, she started moving again. So I tried to get that on video. I don't know if it's gonna come through or not, but it's a weird thing. I don't know why they do that. You know, you want to put human emotions on bees. Maybe she's scared, or I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's funny. This is a nuke that was made on 4/1. It's now 5/1. So it's been in here 4 weeks. It's probably got some brood that's beginning to emerge. I think this queen probably started laying a little early. And you can see they're drawing wall to wall. This one will leave in 2 days. And that's good because I don't think I could hold them any longer. I can't hold them another week. I'd have to put a box on them. These are really too big. It's a good nuke. I'd be happy buying one of these, but it's just about too big. So I'm spending a lot of time in the mating yard, queen checking and marking queens. I've got enough nukes now that I'll probably be halfway done fulfilling nuke orders by this weekend. That'll be May 3rd. And then I've got a big graft batch with 2 builders that I did on 4/14. I'm queen checking those now, and I've got a really good return rate on those, probably 90%. So I should be able to fulfill the rest of my nuke orders out of this batch on the May 10th week, and then be done with nuke sales after that. Everything else will be mine. I set a goal of selling 75 nukes this year. I think I'll do that. We've got 125 or 130 in this yard, and then 25 more in another yard. And I'm gonna set up a builder next week to make some more sales for the misses. You know, the ones that are duds and just you don't always get them all back. And I might do 2 builders next week and get 1 big batch of cells because I've still got a bunch of colonies to requeen. I'll talk real quick about requeening my non-productive colonies, the ones that aren't making honey, got old queens or problems or whatever. So my plan is to take some of my honeymaker nukes, my double nukes that I made in the spring that are getting giant, and just move a non-productive colony off of its spot move it somewhere in the same bee yard, plop this big nuke down, and let it capture the field force. And that way I'll have a productive colony for my June flow. My main flow is tailing off. You know, I've got a week, maybe 2 weeks of making honey, and then it's done. And then we're worrying about June. But you take one of these, it was a double nuke, and it's obviously big enough I had to put a super on it. Pull the bait frame up. A lot of bees in there. If I let them, oh, that wasn't good. If I move this nuke into a hive stand and let them capture the field force from another colony, we are for sure going to make honey in June. There's one I dropped a super on last week. Yeah, they're gonna make honey. They're making a little bit of honey right now. They're definitely gonna make honey in June. So the way I'm wanting to do this requeening, it might be a little bit unconventional, but you take a hive and you move it in the same bee yard, it loses the field force. These nukes are plenty big enough that they're not gonna get overwhelmed by the field force and lose their queen or anything like that. But depopulating that hive I want to requeen is going to make finding that queen a lot easier. And then I can probably bust it up into, you know, separate boxes and drop cells in each box and try to make some later nukes with them. Strong nukes though. The later you go in the season, the stronger you need to make the nukes. They'll get overrun by hive beetles otherwise.